The woman stood barefoot in the middle of the street, her nightgown soaked in blood that wasn't hers. She couldn't remember how she got there, or why the neighbors were screaming. Sirens wailed in the distance, but she didn't move. All she could do was stare at the crimson smear on her trembling hands, and wonder whose voice was still whispering inside her head. It started with the sound of scratching. At first, Claire thought it was just the pipes again. Her 100-year-old farmhouse outside Ashland, Oregon had plenty of creaks and groans. But this sound was different. It was rhythmic, persistent, like fingernails dragging across drywall. She padded down the hallway in slippers, heart thudding harder than it should have. A logical voice in her head told her it was probably a mouse. Maybe raccoons in the attic again. But another part of her, the one she kept buried under layers of therapy and mood stabilizers, knew better. She paused at the base of the attic stairs. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It stopped the moment she touched the doorknob. The next morning, she found the lockbox in the back of the attic, behind a stack of her late mother's boxes. She didn't remember putting it there. She didn't remember owning it. The box was heavy, metal, old, no keyhole. A 4-digit code was etched into the front in faded brass, 0608. Her birthday. It snapped open on the first try. Inside was a stack of Polaroids, all taken in what looked like her living room, but not quite. The walls were the same, the fireplace the same, but the furniture was different. So were the people. Some were asleep. Others tied to chairs. One girl, blonde, no older than 15, stared dead-eyed at the camera with a split lip and dried blood crusted at her temple. Claire dropped the photos like they burned. She didn't remember taking them. She didn't remember any of these people. But the scariest part wasn't what she didn't remember. It was what she did. A flash. A sound. A voice. Take another one. You're doing so good, honey. Claire retched in the sink, while rising fast. She hadn't had an episode in over a year. Her psychiatrist called it dissociative amnesia, a coping mechanism triggered by extreme trauma. There were years in her 20s she still couldn't account for. But this felt recent. She called Dr. Patel twice. No answer. She didn't leave a voicemail. By that evening, the photos were gone. She swore she'd put them back in the box. Locked it. Hid it again. But now the box was empty. And on her bathroom mirror, scrawled in red lipstick, were 4 chilling words. You're starting to remember. Claire backed away, hands trembling. The air felt thick. The room spun slightly. She steadied herself on the counter and tried to breathe. From the hallway, the scratching started again. Only this time, it wasn't from the attic. It was coming from the basement. Claire stood frozen at the top of the basement stairs, her hands still clutching the bathroom doorframe behind her like it was a life preserver. The sound had stopped again mid-scratch, mid-scrape, leaving behind only the silence. A silence that throbbed. The lipstick on the mirror was still wet. She forced herself down the narrow staircase, each step creaking beneath her. The air grew colder with every foot. Damp. Moldy. The kind of basement smell that seeps into your lungs and makes you feel like you're breathing through cloth. She flicked the light switch. Nothing. Bulb must have blown. Claire swallowed hard, phone flashlight trembling in her grip, casting jumpy shadows across the cement floor. The beam landed on the shelves first, dusty tools, old paint cans, a forgotten box of Christmas ornaments. Then it found the back wall. A section of drywall was freshly disturbed. She didn't remember doing any renovations. She didn't remember touching this wall at all. But there it was, plaster chunks on the ground, a hammer nearby. And in the center, a jagged square, a makeshift hatch, maybe 2 feet wide. Something behind it. A crawl space? Claire knelt slowly, breath shallow. The drywall gave way with a slight tug, and behind it, nestled inside like some grotesque secret, was a wooden chair. And straps. Leather straps bolted into the arms and legs. She stumbled back, nearly tripping over the hammer. This wasn't from the old owners. She'd gutted the place after the sale, right down to the studs. If something like this had been here, she would have seen it. Unless she built it herself. Her heart skittered at the thought. No. She'd been clean. Stable. The meds were working. Therapy twice a week. Yoga, journaling, the whole damn checklist. She hadn't blacked out in over 14 months. Then she saw the initials. Carved into the armrest. Small, faint. CL. Claire Langston. Her name. She backed into the wall, suddenly nauseous again. Her phone slipped from her fingers and the flashlight blinked out, plunging her into darkness. That's when she heard it again. Breathing. Not hers. Wet. Shallow. Close. She froze. The air turned icy. She reached blindly for the phone, but found skin instead, cold skin, damp like it had been buried in earth. She screamed. By the time she scrambled out and slammed the basement door behind her, her breaths were ragged gasps. Her hands were bleeding. She didn't even realize she'd scraped them until the blood started dripping on the floor. She called Dr. Patel again. Still no answer. But this time, someone picked up. Only it wasn't her doctor. It was a child. A girl. And she whispered one thing before the line went dead. "Why did you leave me down there?" Claire didn't sleep that night. She sat in the living room with every light on, a kitchen knife clutched in one hand and the cordless phone in the other. She didn't call the police. What could she say? That she found a torture chair behind her own wall and some ghost child answered her therapist's number? No. The cops would just see a woman with a history of psychiatric illness having a psychotic break. And maybe that's exactly what was happening. By sunrise, her eyes were bloodshot, and her mind was frayed at the edges. She forced herself to eat toast and drink water. The hallucinations would only get worse if she didn't take care of her body. That's what Dr. Patel always said. Dr. Patel, who wasn't answering her phone. Claire decided to drive into town. The Ashland Clinic was a sterile, beige building tucked between a Walgreens and a shuttered Blockbuster. Inside, the receptionist gave her a tight smile and a pause too long before answering her question. "Dr. Patel's on leave," she said carefully. "Family emergency. She's out of state." "Since when?" The receptionist frowned at the screen. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Claire had just spoken to her last Friday. They reviewed her medication. They talked about dream journaling. No, wait. Was that last week? Or the week before? Claire left without another word. Her head buzzed like a kicked beehive. She got back into her car and sat there, gripping the wheel. Her phone chimed. A new text. No name. Just a number. You looked right at her and still forgot. She's waiting. Her blood turned to ice. She threw the phone into the passenger seat and drove home. As she pulled into the gravel driveway, she noticed something off about the house. Not the structure, the feeling. Like the windows were watching her. Like the whole building was holding its breath. Inside, the air was heavier. Her phone vibrated again. Another text from the same number. Go to the hallway. Behind the painting. Claire knew exactly which one. The hallway by the guest room had a faded portrait of her mother's dog, Molly, a thing she always meant to take down but never did. The frame was slightly askew, and when she lifted it, a small panel in the wall popped loose. Inside was a photo album. Not one she remembered. The cover was pink. Childish. The kind of thing you'd get for a daughter. Inside were pictures of a girl. The same girl from the Polaroid. Blonde. Pale. Always wearing the same striped pajamas. Her eyes looked dead in most of them, but in one, she was smiling. Standing in a kitchen Claire didn't recognize. On the fridge behind her, scrawled in crayon, were the words, "My name is Lily Langston." Claire stared at the name. Langston. Her name. Daughter? No. Impossible. She'd never had children. Never been pregnant. Right? The album slipped from her fingers, and as it hit the floor, a new sound echoed through the house. A child's laughter. From upstairs. Claire didn't move at first. The laugh had been soft, almost playful, but layered beneath it was something else, a note too sharp, too close to a scream. It turned her blood to frost. She crept up the stairs like she was trespassing in her own home. The hallway was empty, just the familiar row of bedroom doors. Her guest room. Her mother's old room. The attic stairs at the end. Nothing out of place. Except there was a door that shouldn't be there, right between her bedroom and the linen closet, where there had always been blank wall. She stared at it, heart pounding. The knob was brass. Old. Like the kind you'd find in a Victorian nursery. Her hand trembled as she reached out, half expecting it to vanish the moment she touched it. It didn't. It turned smoothly in her palm. The room beyond was wrong. It was small, maybe 8 by 8 feet. Wallpaper peeled in thin vertical strips, cartoon bears with missing eyes and crooked grins. A single bed sat in the corner, stained mattress bare. Toys littered the floor, a headless Barbie, a plastic tea set, a broken music box with a ballerina frozen mid-pirouette. Claire took one step in and froze. The walls were covered in crayon drawings, but not childish ones. They were crude and frantic, scratched in loops and spirals, stick figures with mouths agape, red lines pouring from their heads, their hands, their eyes. Above them, in jagged handwriting, were phrases repeated over and over again. "I don't like the dark. Mommy, please wake up. Stop the chair. Claire's knees buckled. She dropped to the floor, the bile rising again. In the corner, something caught her eye, a stuffed rabbit, matted and crusted with something brown. She picked it up, and underneath was a drawing. A single child holding hands with a woman. The woman's face was crossed out in thick red marker. Underneath, in that same, scratchy handwriting. Me and Mommy when she still knew me. Claire clutched her head. Her pulse pounded in her ears. She didn't remember. She didn't remember. But her body did. Her body knew. Her fingers trembled like they'd held that marker before. The air shifted. Behind her, the music box whirred to life. Slow, broken notes echoed through the small room. Claire turned sharply. The ballerina had moved. She was spinning again, but wrong. Jerky. Like something was pulling her off track. Claire backed out of the room and slammed the door shut. Only, when she looked up, the hallway was no longer hers. The floors were different. The wallpaper had changed. There were no photos on the walls. Just a single, flickering light bulb swinging from the ceiling like a pendulum. And from the stairs behind her came a slow, dragging sound. Like bare feet on wood. One step at a time. Coming closer. Claire didn't wait. She ran. Down the twisting hallway that no longer matched her house, past warped walls and rust-colored stains, until she slammed into her bedroom door, or what looked like it. She threw it open and dove inside, slamming it shut behind her, bracing herself against it like it might burst inward. Silence. Nothing followed. The room was still. Claire backed away from the door, breath rattling in her chest. Her bedroom looked normal. Mostly. Same dresser. Same window. But the air was thick with the smell of ammonia and rot. She turned to the mirror above her vanity. And froze. Her reflection was wrong. The woman in the glass looked like her. Same dark hair. Same hollow eyes. But there was something in her face that wasn't hers. A cruelty. A vacancy. A smear of red across her chin, like she'd been feeding on something raw. Claire blinked. The image didn't change. Then the reflection lifted a hand. Claire didn't. It smiled. Claire stumbled backward, hitting the dresser hard. The mirror cracked, a spiderweb fracture splitting right through her double's face. She bolted. This time, the house did respond. The hallway twisted around her, steps endless, doors rearranging themselves. The light above her flickered with every panicked breath. She ran until the floor gave out beneath her. Just gone. No warning, no sound, only blackness swallowing her whole. She landed hard on something wooden. Groaned. Her arm ached, maybe dislocated. But she was alive. Around her, shadows shifted. She was in the basement. But it was bigger now. Wider. The crawlspace wall was gone, expanded into a tunnel that stretched into black. And from the dark came a faint sound. Weeping. Claire pulled herself up. She didn't want to move, didn't want to see. But something deeper than fear pulled her forward. A question louder than the panic. What did I do? She walked. The tunnel narrowed, then opened into a concrete room. In the center, the chair. Not a photo. The real thing. Bloodstains dried into the leather. Scraps of rope still tied to the arms. Next to it, a mattress on the floor. Stained. Child-sized. Claire's knees gave out. Her lungs seized. The truth was beginning to rise, slow and terrible, like oil through water. She had a daughter, and she heard her. Not in memory, not in dreams, but here, in this house. From behind the chair, a small shape stepped into the light. The girl from the photos. Pale, thin, wearing the same striped pajamas. Her eyes were wide, but there was no fear in them. Only grief. "Mommy," she said softly. "You said you'd come back." Claire's vision blurred. Her lips trembled. I didn't know. I didn't remember." The girl tilted her head. "But you chose to forget." Claire couldn't speak. Couldn't move. The girl stepped closer and whispered, "Do you want to see what else you forgot?" Claire couldn't breathe. The girl, Lily, stood barely a foot away now, her small hand extended like she was offering Claire the key to a locked door. A door Claire had spent years bricking over with medication, therapy, and silence. But the bricks were crumbling, and something vast and terrible was starting to break through. I didn't know," Claire whispered. Lily's eyes were ancient. "Wounded. You did. You just didn't want to." Claire's knees buckled. She collapsed onto the floor beside the mattress, fingers clutching at the torn fabric like it could anchor her to the present. But the present was unraveling. The walls pulsed like lungs. Shadows throbbed at the edge of her vision. Lily crouched beside her. "Do you remember the closet?" she asked softly. Claire's breath caught. And then, It was like being slammed into her own skull. She saw it. A closet door. Locked from the outside. The smell of urine and sweat. The darkness absolute. A small hand pounding on the inside, the muffled sobs. Her own voice, cold, detached, whispering. You need to learn silence, Lily. You scream too much. Claire screamed. Her voice tore through the concrete, but there was no echo. Just her own shame, ricocheting off the walls of her mind. She crawled away, hands scraping across the floor. Lily didn't follow. Instead, the basement began to shift again, not the house, her. The reality she'd constructed, the tidy story of childhood trauma and dissociative amnesia, began to fracture like glass under heat. She remembered being 13, her mother's rages, the bruises. But now, she remembered becoming the mother. The cycle. The unthinkable inheritance. Claire had always told her therapist her amnesia began in her 20s, a self-protective void. But now she saw the truth. She hadn't lost time. She'd buried it. She'd layered her past with false timelines, imagined traumas that made her the victim, because the real story was unbearable. Lily had been born in a moment of chaos. A failed relationship. A breakdown. Claire had been alone. Overwhelmed. Untreated. The first time she left Lily in the basement was just for an hour. But it became 2. Then 4. Then the door stayed closed for days. And then Claire began to forget on purpose. She forced herself upright, eyes blazing with horror. Where is she? Claire croaked. Where's my daughter now? Lily looked up at her with sorrow that didn't match her childlike face. You buried her memory like you buried me. Claire grabbed the girl's shoulders. No. I want to know. I need to remember. What did I do? What happened to you? Lily didn't speak. She only nodded toward the far wall, where a door now stood. A door Claire had never seen before. A hospital door. With a plastic wristband hanging from the handle. Claire stepped toward it, legs trembling. As she reached for the knob, Lily whispered, After you remember, you'll never be able to forget again. The door creaked open with a sound like bones grinding against each other. Behind it, a white hallway. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Linoleum floors. The sterile chill of a medical facility. Claire stepped through, the air shifting around her, thickening with every step. The moment the door closed behind her, it was gone. No way back. Ahead, a nurse's station, empty, silent. A wall-mounted clock ticked endlessly at 3:17 a.m. Claire's feet moved on their own, as if the truth had its own gravity. She turned the corner and found herself facing a glass observation window. Behind it, a hospital room. Inside, a woman sat in a chair, rocking slowly. A nurse was changing in 4 back. The woman's hair was tangled, matted. Her arms were strapped to the chair's sides, but she didn't resist. She just rocked. Claire stepped closer. The woman turned, and Claire looked into her own face. Older, gaunt, eyes hollowed out by years of something worse than guilt, forgetting. The nurse looked up, startled. Are you family? She asked through the speaker. Claire didn't respond. She couldn't. The nurse stepped out into the hallway. I'm sorry, I didn't realize she had visitors, the nurse said gently. She doesn't get many. She hasn't spoken in years. What is this place? Claire whispered. State hospital. She was found wandering, incoherent. Brought in 5 years ago. No ID. Just a bracelet. We called her Jane Doe for a while, but we finally got a name when she muttered it in her sleep. Claire stared at her reflection's twin. The nurse continued, she said. Lily Langston. Said it over and over. Thought it was her name. But turns out it wasn't. That's her daughter. A sound broke behind them, glass shattering. Claire whirled. The hospital room was gone. In its place, a basement. But not her basement. A recreation. And in the center of it, a small skeletal shape lay curled on the mattress. Lily. No longer a child. Not even a ghost. Just remains. Claire sank to her knees. The weight of it crushed her lungs, her bones. The memory, now full and clear, settled into place like a final puzzle piece. She hadn't just neglected her daughter. She had abandoned her. And then, to live with herself, she had sealed the memory behind walls and pills and false timelines, constructing a story where she was the victim, not the monster. But truth doesn't stay buried forever. Behind her, the nurse spoke softly. We think she tried to kill herself, but it didn't take. The brain protected her. Created layers. Claire turned one last time toward the glass. But the chair was now empty. No straps. No woman. Just a mirror. And in that mirror, she saw herself. Not older. Not younger. Just her. standing alone in a room where a child had once waited and died. She stepped into the room. The door closed behind her with a soft click. No lock, no exit, just memory, and finally silence.